Started with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkrpatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramanandamadavam ईश्वरं नमामो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्या प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्दा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Offering prayers to Sri Valmiki Muni, Hanuman and Lord Sri Ramchandra. कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं कोनयाते परां गतिं वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसे जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदः प्राचेतसात् आसीत् साक्षात् रामायणात्मना अञ्जनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम् मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूतमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि आञ्जनेयमदिपाटनालनं काञ्चनाद्रिकमनीयविग्रहं पारिजाततरुमूलवासिनं भावयामि पवमाननन्दनं यत्र यत्र रघुनाथकीर्तनं तत्र तत्र कृतमस्तकाञ्जलिं भाष्पवारि परिपूर्णलोचनं मारुतिं नमत राक्षसान्तकम् जयत्राशतसन्त्रासध्वान्त्वविद्वांसनोदयः प्रभावान् सीतया देव्या परमव्योमभास्करः श्रीराम राम रामेति रमे रामे मनोरमे सहस्रनाम तत्तुल्यं रामनाम वरानने. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining us. And this is actually a repeat class because we forgot to go live and record in the previous session, which was actually our final session of the entire Valmiki Ramayana, also the final session of the Uttara Ramayana. So we will go through the entire Uttara Ramayana today, and of course we will focus more on the last section. The Uttarakanda begins with a very beautiful verse that describes the victory of Lord Ramachandra and how he had destroyed all the Rakshasas. And right after that, many sages came to see Ramchandra to congratulate him. Prapta Rajasya Ramasya Rakshasan Vadhan Krite Agamur Ishaya Sarve Raghavam Pratinanditum. So everybody, all the sages came from different directions to congratulate Lord Ram. Who are the different sages who came? It is mentioned sages like Kaushika, Kanva, Atri, Kashyapa, Vishwamitra, Jamadagni, Gautama, Bharadwaja, Vasishta, and specifically Agastya, who led all of them, had come to glorify the Lord. So when they came at the entrance of the Lord's palace, he immediately went running out to receive all of them by offering different items of worship, and he inquired about the well-being of all these sages. That is when the sages, they told Ramachandra that they were extremely delighted that Ram had conquered Ravana. Not only did he conquer Ravan, but they were very happy that Indrajit was actually killed. And why did they specifically mention about Indrajit? This was a question that Ram also had in his mind. So he asks the sages, I understand that you're all delighted that Ravana is no more, but why so much celebration and so much about Indrajit? What is so special about him? So that is when the sages begin to tell the history of Ravana's birth. So they talk about the great sage Pulatsya, who was the son, direct son of Brahma, and he happens to marry the daughter of Trinabandhu, and he has a son by the name Vishravas. Now, this son, Vishravas, he was a great sage. He had heard all the Vedas while he was in the womb of his mother. This Vishravas later had a son by the name Vaishravana. This Vaishravana is none other than Kuvera. This Kuvera performed several austerities and he gets the post of a Lokapalaka. Not only that, he also gets a beautiful place to reside, which is Lanka. Now, this Lanka is a golden city, and this was gifted by Kuvera's father, Vishravas, to Kuvera, telling Kuvera that this land is not occupied currently. If you go there and occupy this land, you can stay peacefully there with your followers. However, he also mentions that this land earlier belonged to the Rakshasas. The Rakshasas have vacated this place and they have gone to the lower regions. So it is practically inhabited and you can stay there peacefully. So when Ramchandra heard that the Rakshasas had earlier lived in Lanka, he was very, very curious. He asks Agastya, I thought the Rakshasas lineage was only from the time of around Ravana or Ravana's ancestors, immediate ancestors. But I didn't know that the Rakshasas lived much before Kuvera existed. So, can you tell me more about the origin of the Rakshasas and why they had to leave to the lower planetary systems? So, when Ramchandra asked this question, Agastya was smiling. The reason he was smiling is he was thinking it is this same Lord who drove away the Rakshasas to the lower planetary systems, and he is asking this question. How did the Lord drive them away? It so happened that once there was a terrible, terrible fight that happened between the demigods and the Rakshasas. So, before we come to that fight that happened between the demigods and the Rakshasas, we should understand the exact ancestry of the Rakshasas. So, how did the Rakshasas come into existence? And specifically, how were they existing even before Ravan? To answer that question, sage Agastya, he begins to tell the entire history. He says that the Rakshasas were originally created by Brahma, just as different species of life were originally created by Brahma. Similarly, the Rakshasas were also created by Brahma. Specifically, they were two brothers, Heti and Praheti. Praheti decided to practice penance while Heti marries the sister of Kala, whose name is Bhaya, and had children with her. And specifically, he had a son by the name Vidyut Kesha. From Vidyut Kesha came Sukesha. This Sukesha, he was raised by Shiva and Parvati because he was abandoned when he was a child. And from this Sukesha, came three powerful sons. These three powerful sons were Mali, Sumali, and Malyavan. Now, they were very, very prominent Rakshasas. Their names are mentioned in different places in Bhagavatam as well. They performed severe, severe austerities, and as a result, they pleased Brahma, and Brahma gave him this beautiful golden city of Lanka as a gift to them as an award for all the austerities that they had performed. So originally, Lanka belonged to these three Rakshasas, Mali, Sumali, and Malyavan. This is when the war actually happened. So I told you once upon a time there was a war between the Rakshasas and the demigods. So this is the war that we are talking about. So there was a war that broke out between the demigods and the Rakshasas, and as expected, Vishnu came to support the demigods. The demigods had surrendered to Lord Vishnu and they asked him for help and protection. Lord Hari, he mounted on his carrier Garuda, and he was looking like a huge mountain, adorning his wonderful armor, carrying all the weapons in his hands, wearing yellow garments. He appeared on the battlefield. While he was fighting heroically, at that time, Mali was trying to run away from the battlefield because he couldn't face Vishnu. But then, what did Vishnu do? Vishnu released his Sudarshan Chakra and he beheaded Mali, who was running away from the battlefield. Now, according to Kshatriya Dharma, when a person is running away from the battlefield, we do not harm them. Because he's frightened and he's going away from the battlefield. So the Kshatriya Dharma forbids one from attacking a person who's running away. But then the Supreme Lord, he decided to kill him that way. That is when Sumali and Malyavan stopped the Lord and they asked the Lord, "What are you doing? Why are you punishing a person who's running away from the battlefield? This is not according to Kshatriya Dharma." That is when the Lord said, "What is this Kshatriya Dharma? I am only worried about Sharanagati Dharma." Just like when there is a cow and suddenly there is a tiger that comes and attacks the cow, will you be waiting to see the tiger face to face and fight with the tiger? You would rather kill the tiger from behind. Similarly, to protect the cow like demigods, I had to kill this ferocious demon who's like a tiger, and hence, whether he's facing forward or backward, I don't care. I have to protect my devotees and I will do what is needed. And later, Somali and Malyavan, who were originally occupying Lanka, flee from Lanka because they are very, very scared to stay in Lanka, knowing that Narayan can come anytime and attack them. So they went and hid in the Rasatala regions. Many years passed by, and one day, Sumali, who's the second brother, he emerged from the lower planetary systems holding his dear daughter in his hand, and he was walking around Earth trying to find a suitable match for his daughter. His daughter's name was Kaikasi. Now, when he was walking around like that, suddenly he saw his old land, Lanka, and there was a man who was flying in an airplane from his land, Lanka, towards the northern part of the Himalayas, where he went to meet his father. This person was none other than Kuvera. So, you all heard that Kuvera occupied Lanka after the Rakshasas. So, this Somali, he witnessed the sight of Kuvera flying in an airplane and going to meet his father Vishwas. That is when Somali had a brilliant idea. He thought, why not my daughter actually marry the same Vishwas and have many, many powerful sons from this sage? That way, her sons can also become as powerful as this Vaishravana, who is Kuvera. That is when he tells his daughter to go and approach the sage. She approaches the sage for union at a wrong point in time. The sage says this is not an appropriate time, but still they unite and they have two demoniac sons. And the sage blesses her with one son who will be an adherer of Dharma. So the two sons were Dashagriva and Kumbhakarna, and the third son, who was an adherer of Dharma, was Vibhishan. They also have a daughter by the name Shurpanaka, according to the Uttara Kanda. Now, as these boys were raised up, the seed of envy was planted in their heart because the mother often compared them with Vaishravana, who's Kuvera, and told the brothers to become like him. They had taken an oath to become more powerful than Vaishravana, and they go and perform various austerities. So we know the different austerities Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Vibhishan performed, and as a result, Ravana wanted a boon that he would not be killed by any species of life except human beings and Vanaras. And this boon was granted by Lord Brahma. And our Kumbhakarna actually wanted Nirdevatvam. That means a world without the Devas. But however, Saraswati Devi intervened, and instead of saying Nirdevatvam, he said Nidrevatvam, which means I just want sleep. Ravana had to stop and intervene, and he said, "Oh Brahma, I know you said Tathastu, but then please give some a little bit relaxation to this rule. Let him wake up once in 6 months." And that boon was granted as well. However, Vibhishan, his desire was that he always wanted to adhere to dharma. Brahma was very impressed, and he also said that the Brahmastra cannot do anything to Vibhishan. As Ravan became very, very powerful with all these boons, Malyavan thought that it was the perfect time to instill more hatred in his heart and make him the king of the Rakshasas. So he goes and he brainwashes Ravana and he tells Ravan, you have to become our new king now that you have become so powerful. Not only that, remember this Lanka actually belonged to us, but your brother Vaishravana Kuvera is living there. Drive him out of this place and let us occupy Lanka. And Ravan said, he's my brother. How can I do this to him? But then Malyavan and Sumali, they said, there is no need for you to think of him as our brother or your brother or anything of that kind. This land was unjustly taken away from us. All that we have to do is take our land back. We will make you the king and you can see great success. And that is when Prahasta gives him an idea. He tells him that I can go as a messenger and I can tell Kuvera to vacate that land. And when Kuvera is told to vacate the land, Kuvera agrees. He goes and asks permission from his father. He tells his father that my brother wants me to vacate this land because apparently this land belongs to his mother's side relatives. And immediately Vishrava says, that is fine. You better leave that place because we cannot talk to them. I tried talking to them multiple times, but they don't listen. So it is okay. Instead of fighting, it is better to just keep away. So take a land that is near Kailash and it's a very beautiful place. And he goes there. And Kuvera vacates that place and he goes there. So, meanwhile, now Ravan has become the king of the Rakshasas and it is time for all of them to get married. First, Shurpanaka is married to a Danava by the name Vidyajihva, who was later killed in a battle by Ravana himself. And Ravan, he is also at this point in time trying to find a match for himself. And that is when he sees Mayadanava holding his daughter's hand by the name Mandodari and traversing around the region where the Vanaras were once stuck in a cave, the cave of Swayamprabha. So that is when Ravana spots Mayadhanava with his daughter, and Ravana goes and introduces himself to Mayadhanava, and Mayadhanava also introduces himself, saying that he is the architect of the demons, and this is his daughter Mandodari, who was born to a celestial Apsara by the name Hema, and Hema abandoned them, and Hema went back to the kingdom of Indra whilst his daughter Mandodari is of marriageable age. Ravana at once made a bold proposal and they lit a fire there and they get married. And he also receives very nice gifts from his father-in-law Mayadanava. So Ravan gets married to Mandodari. Besides that, the marriage of Kumbhakarna and Vibhishan is also mentioned. Vibhishan's wife is, many of you know, she's Sarama because we also see her presence in the Sundarakand of the Ramayana. And even Kumbhakarna, he also gets married to one of the Danava or a Rakshasa lady, and they are all settled. So now what happened was Mandodari, she gave birth to her first son by the name Meghanad. This Meghanad, when he was born itself, he was very, very powerful. And Meghanad had one special boon that he had received. What was the one special boon that he had received? He had received a boon that when he is stopped, no, sorry, when he completes a particular sacrifice towards Nikumbila, he can, when he once he has completed that sacrifice, he can come out powerful and nobody can conquer him. That is the boon that he actually tries to ask from this Brahma, actually. So, because of this boon, he had become extremely powerful and he was practically unconquerable. Ravan had many, many curses, and because of that, it was easy to conquer him. But this Meghanad, he had once captured Indra because of his Maya Yuddha capabilities that he had. He had once captured Indra and he had kept Indra captive. And that is when Brahma comes to release Indra and he requests Brahma that if he has to release Indra, then he needs a boon. And he initially asks for a boon to become practically invincible, but then Brahma says that is not possible. And that is when he says, if I have to release Indra, then give me a boon that if I complete a certain sacrifice and I am out of that arena, then I will be invincible. Nobody can kill me. So that is the kind of boon that he had received. And because of that, not only did he perform magical warfare, but he also went to this arena of Nikumbila to perform the sacrifice. And eventually, Lakshman came and stopped him, and that is how he was conquered. So the sages actually congratulate Ramchandra for this great feat, specifically the killing of Indrajit. Okay. So, meanwhile, the atrocities of Ravana was increasing like anything, and Kuvera tried to give him some sound advice. And however, Kuvera's messenger was killed by Ravan, and Ravan wages a fight against the Yakshas because Kuvera is their leader. And as a result of the war, the Rakshasas come out victorious, and he takes the Pushpak Vimana. He grabs the Pushpak Viman from Kuvera. Originally, the Pushpak Viman belonged to Kuvera because it was a gift given by Brahma to him when he became the Lokapalaka. But now Ravan had taken it away from him after the war. So these are the different incidents of Ravana's fall down, why Ravana was ultimately conquered because of his own misbehavior. So we are seeing these incidents one by one. First and foremost thing, he grabbed the Pushpak from Kuvera. Then one day when he was traversing in his Kuvera around different places, he happened to fly over Mount Kailash and his vehicle abruptly stopped. And that is when he sees Nandikeshwar and he asks him, why is my vehicle stopping? Why can't I fly above this place? And Nandi says that this is the abode of Shankara and you cannot trespass this area. And Ravan laughs at the face of Nandi, saying that you look like a monkey. And that is when Nandi actually curses him, saying that your death will be uh, possible only because of the force of monkeys. So that is one particular curse he receives. He also tries to lift Kailash because he says if Kailash cannot permit me to fly over Kailash, then I'd rather just displace Kailash. So he tries to carry Kailash, and that is when his hands get stuck. And because of Lord Shiva's pressing down of his toe, and Ravana understands the power of Lord Shiva, and he sings beautiful stutis from the Sama Veda, and he pleases Lord Shiva. He sings these verses for thousands of years, and finally, Lord Shiva is pleased, and Lord Shiva also gifts him a sword called as Chandrahasa. And then later, as he went on, he saw a very beautiful woman performing austerities. Her name was Vedavati, and he tried to forcibly pull her hair, and her hand transforms into a sword, and she cuts off that portion and she immolates herself by yogic power. And she curses him, saying that she will come back to be the cause of his death, and she is none other than Maya Sita. Ravana was very, very powerful. He was conquering all the three worlds, and that is when the demigods were extremely scared of Ravan. Whenever they would see Ravan, they would go and hide. And during one such sacrifice, conducted by King Marutta, all the demigods had assembled, but the minute they saw Ravan, they started hiding, and to hide themselves, they started taking forms of different birds and animals. Indra took the form of a peacock, Yamaraj took the form of a crow, Kuvera the form of a chameleon, and Varuna the form of a swan. And finally, because these animal forms helped them to hide nicely, these demigods also gave boons to these animals. Initially, peacocks did not have these beautiful eyes, but then Indra said, I have thousands of eyes, so I will ensure that your feathers also have lovely eyes. Similarly, swans were not pure white earlier, but then later they were given this boon by Varuna that they will look very beautiful in waters and they will look crystal white. So, like that, so many boons are given to all these birds and animals. And that way, the demigods actually got saved and didn't get um, defeated by, I mean, didn't get spotted by Ravana. And then Ravana, he proceeded and he was. One second. There's a lot of overlap. I will reshare the screen. Sorry, my computer stopped working and everything got shut down. Just give me a second. Okay. There's a lot of delay in my system, so it's taking a while. While Ravana's atrocities continued, and he started kidnapping the daughters of different demigods, and many rishis, many demigods' daughters were all taken by Ravan by force. That is when all these ladies they cursed Ravan, saying that the destruction of Ravan should happen because of a woman, and that was the next curse that he had received. He also had an episode with Rambha, who's one of the Apsaras, and because he forced himself on Rambha, Navalakuvara actually curses him, saying that the next time he forced a woman without her permission, his head would split into many pieces. And finally, this Indrajit, he also received his boon that he would become invincible when he completed the great Nikumbila Yajna. So when the sages mentioned all these stories to Ramachandra, Ramachandra could understand the power of both Indrajit and Ravan. But Ram had a question at this point. He asked the sages that you mentioned about so many conquests of Ravan and Indrajit, but then I would like to know, did any king overpower Ravan? That is when the stories of Kartavirya Arjuna and Vali was mentioned. But later, Ramchandra again had a question. He heard the greatness of Vali and he had also seen the greatness of Sugriv. But then Ram asked Agastya Muni, but isn't Hanuman more powerful than all of them? If Hanuman desired, he could have given full protection to Sugriva. He was immensely powerful. What really happened in his case? And that is when Agastya continues to tell the story of Hanuman. So we saw the birth of Hanuman. We also saw his childhood exploits. how Hanuman was running after the sun, mistaking it for a fruit, and later how he was struck by the Vajra weapon of Indra and he falls down. Vayu becomes very upset and he stops functioning, and that is when all the demigods come and they give various boons to Hanuman. Hanuman becomes very, very powerful and he starts tormenting the world, meaning especially the sages, because he's a mischievous kid. And the sages, they curse him, saying that hereafter you're going to forget about your powers unless you are reminded. And later we hear that Jambavan reminded him, and that is when we saw his beautiful service to Lord Ram, his powerful service to Lord Ram. So all the questions of Ram was answered. The sages took their leave, and time was passing. And as time passed, they understood. Ramchandra understood that Sita was pregnant, and she had it when Ramchandra asked her, "What is your desire? I have to satisfy your desires because you're pregnant now." That time she says, "I really enjoyed those days in the ashram of the sages, hearing wise words from them in your company. I really want to go spend some time there, pay my obeisances to the sages, especially when I am pregnant." And after that, Ramchandra says that he will fulfill his desire. And later that day, when Ram enters the royal assembly and he's just talking to the ministers, his messenger Bhadra comes after touring the entire township, trying to get feedback about the leadership of Ram. And Ramchandra questions him whether good or bad, whatever it is, please give me honest feedback. What is happening in the city? And Bhadra says, "What? There is absolutely no problem in Ram's ruling." But then, when he insists, saying that I'm sure people are not only singing glories, but they also have complaints. So, why don't you tell me what is happening? And Bhadra tells about how some people are talking in the city. Some of them are telling that this Ram has brought a woman that was abducted by a Rakshasa king, and doesn't Ram feel any shame in keeping her? The only reason he's keeping her is because he's extremely lusty. And whatever a king does, the subjects must follow. Therefore, because Ram is like this, should the people also tolerate unfaithful wives? Is that what the king is expecting? So these are some comments that was passed by some of the people in Ayodhya. Hearing this, Ram was extremely shocked, and he had a discussion with his brothers, and then he was pouring out his heart to his brothers. He was speaking about the great ordeal that Sita had to go through. He said that I know my wife, I know how pure she is. She had to prove to the entire world by entering fire so that nobody would talk about her. But then look at our condition at this point in time. And later he calls Lakshman and he tells Lakshman with a heavy heart, we don't have a choice because the brothers wouldn't accept the throne. He had to continue as a responsible leader who had taken an oath to protect his citizens and live as a good example. So he had to send Sita to the banks of the river Tamasa, where Valmiki's ashram was. So Ramchandra, he tells Lakshman he has to carry out his order without questioning. And Lakshman, with a heavy heart, he goes and presents this idea to Mother Sita, saying that earlier yesterday you had asked your husband that you wanted to go and visit the ashram of great sages. Your husband has given me the order to take you there. So he takes Sita. And finally, they go to the river Tamasa, and that is where Lakshman, he falls at the feet of Sita and he tells that I have something to tell you. Ram asked me to leave you here because there are some rumors that is being spread in the city. The citizens are accusing you of staying in someone else's custody, and Ram is lustfully maintaining you in spite of all this. And however, Ramchandra has full faith in you. He understands you, and he had to do this just because he's the king and you are the queen, and we have to live as proper examples. Not only that, you also had requested Ram that you wanted to visit the sages, and that is the reason. Specifically, Ram told me to leave you near the ashram of Sage Valmiki. Initial reaction of Sita is that yes, she cried out and she was thinking about her own condition, how her life is simply full of suffering. And she was thinking, what sin did I do in the past? Why do I have to go through this over and over? And she says, I can just give up my life drowning in the Ganga, but then I am pregnant and I have Ram's air in my womb. So, how can I even give up my life? And that is when she collects herself and she says, actually, as much as I will feel miserable being separated from Ram, Ram will also be miserable separated from me. But then, please give him this message. Tell him, my dear Ram, I am very pure, and you know that too. I know you have a lot of concern for my well being. I know that well. But then I also have a message for you. If someone has accused you of being lusty and maintaining me as your wife, then you should continue to live in that palace without me or without any other wife and prove to the world that you are not an ordinary lusty man. As much as it is Ram's duty to clear up his name, Sita's duty was also to keep up Ram's good name, and she decided to stay back in the forest. And she also advised her husband not only to stay without a wife, she also advises her husband that remain subservient to your subjects. Yes, your subjects have accused me, but then don't harbor any sort of ill feelings to them. Always stay respectful to them and carry out your duties diligently. And then she tells Lakshman, go back and offer my respectful obeisances unto my mothers in law and my husband, who knows my chastity very, very well. And more importantly, she tells, go and tell everybody this message, Rutu Kala Anivartini, that is, I am already pregnant, because I don't want the people to later come and spread rumors that she went into the forest and got pregnant. And Lakshman, he circumambulates Sita and he gets into the boat, and that is when he checks with the Sumantara why Ram and Sita had to undergo this terrible separation. And that is when Sumantara tells about the story of how once upon a time Lord Vishnu killed Bhrigu's wife, Kavya Mata, the mother of Shukracharya, with a discus, because Kavya Mata gave protections to the asuras or the demons irrationally, and she was becoming an obstruction for the protection of the demigods, and Lord Vishnu had to intervene and kill her. And when this happened, Bhrigumuni cursed Vishnu that very soon he will also feel the same separation from his wife, Lord Ramachandra, for the welfare of the world. And to respect the words of a great sage, accepts this, and he comes down to earth and he manages to stay mostly in separation from Sita. And there is so many more reasonings that is mentioned. There are other short stories that are mentioned, like for example there is a story from Hari Bhakti Vilas as well, that says that once Ramchandra's wife Sita Devi asked Valmiki Muni, I am neither independent nor am I unchaste. I am not committed any sinful activity in this life, but what sin did I commit in my previous birth that I got separated from my husband? And that is when Sage Valmiki mentioned that previously you had fasted on an Ekadashi that was mixed with a Dashami, and you worshipped Lord Janardhan. That is a sin. When you fast for Ekadashi, you should fast. If it is mixing with Dashami, you fast the next day. Like for example, today, for many of us in the US, it is actually the Tithi is a mixture of Ekadashi and Dashami, but we don't fast today, we fast tomorrow. Though it might though Dwadashi may come tomorrow, still it is safer for fasting on Dwadashi than fasting on a Dashami that is mixed with Ekadashi. Okay, so this is the mistake that Sita Devi did, and because of that, she had to face some repercussions. And again, we see another story that is mentioned in Padma Puran, that when she was a child, she had two parrots, and the female parrot was singing her story, telling the future of her of her life, and she was very attracted to listening to what the female parrot was telling. So she put that female parrot in the cage and she let the male parrot fly away. The male parrot kept trying to come back to join with its companion, but then Sita Devi had kept the female parrot, in a cage with her. And because of this, the husband and wife, they were separated. And apparently, that male parrot in separation didn't know what to do and went and drowned itself in the waters of Sarayu. That male parrot emerged later as the washerman, according to Padma Puran, not according to the Valmiki Ramayana. According to Padma Puran, this male parrot became the washerman who was the start of the gossip in Ayodhya. Then Valmiki, he realizes that Sita has been left, and then by his mystic power, and he goes and he welcomes Sita into the ashram. And Ramchandra, meanwhile, in the palace, he was lamenting. He couldn't resume his work. It had been almost 4 days, but then he was inspired by Lakshman. He came out of his depression, and then Ramchandra talks about stories of great kings, like story of Nriga, story of Nimi Maharaj, story of Yayati, and he insists on the importance of king's duties. We also saw the story of the dog, how once Ram asked Lakshman to go and see if anyone had a petition, and that is when he says there is nobody waiting with a petition, but Ram says go and look carefully, and Lakshman sees a dog. The dog was wounded on its forehead and it was looking very, very sad. It appeared that the dog wanted to have an audience with Lord Ram. Lakshman brings the dog inside, and the dog miraculously begins to speak. And the dog began to tell his story. He said, I am an innocent dog, but then once when I was squatting on the road, there was this ascetic person, basically a bhikshu sannyasi, who came and he just took a stone and he hit me on my forehead. So I've come here to ask you to resolve the issue. I've been unjustly hurt. And that is when Ram immediately summons the ascetic person, and then he tells that I was very, very hungry. I went begging for food, but then nobody gave me food. I was so hungry. Because I was hungry, I got angry, and I saw this dog. He was squatting in the middle of the road in my way. He wouldn't get out of my way, so I took a stone in anger and I hit him. It is my mistake. You can do whatever punishment you want to give, O king, you can do so. That is when Ramchandra, he looks at all the ministers and the sages, and everyone disapproves that a Brahmana, especially a Brahmana sage, should be punished. And that is when Ram, he asks the dog to speak up. What kind of punishment should be given to the sage? That is when the dog says a very nice punishment come award. He says that this person should be appointed as the head of the Kalanjara Matha, and everybody is surprised. The ascetic was so happy because now he had become a head sannyasi, so he was so thrilled. The dog was very happy. Ramchandra was smiling, and the sages and the ministers were confused. And they said, "What kind of punishment is this? This is actually a felicitation. It's an award." And that is when Ram says, you don't understand the nature of karma. And the dog explains to them about why specifically he chose that. He says that in his previous birth, he was actually the head of that Kalanjara Mata, but because of some inattentiveness, some small mistake that he might have committed, which he doesn't even know what it was, he got the body of a dog because of the mistake that he performed. So he explains that leadership is no joke. It means a lot of responsibility. One small mistake, I'm here as a dog. Now, this man, he can't even control his anger. What kind of leader is he going to be? So that is the biggest punishment that I can give him. So then we see that later there was the sage by the name Chavana. Chavana Muni, who had once come to Lord Ram, saying that Mathura city was actually under great distress because of this demon by the name Lavanasura, who is the son of Madhu, the demon Madhu, and he was the resident of Mathura, right? So he comes tells Ram that we need somebody to come and defeat this Lavanasur, and Bharata decides to go, but then Bharata is stopped by Shatrughna, and Shatrughna says, "My brother, he suffered so much staying in Nandigram for 14 years. I don't want him to go through all this pain. I've not done anything much, so let me go and take care of Lavanasur." That is when Ramchandra he gives Shatrughna an invisible arrow, and he tells that you should use this arrow when this Lavanasur is without his Trishul. Lavanasur had obtained a Trishul from Lord Shiva as a gift. When he is with that Trishul, he is practically invincible. But then at some point, when he enters the eastern gate without the Trishul, that is when you should use this arrow and kill him. But then he tells Shatrughna that you first send all the army and your people first, and then you go after a few days, he says. Why did he say? He said go after a month actually. There is a reason why he says go after a month. There are two reasons. The external reason is because whenever you're going to attack an enemy, you don't go very openly like that. The king and all his soldiers and everybody just goes there, and then the enemy will get alerted, right? So infiltrate gradually. That is one idea. The second thing is Ram had an inner reason, because it would be the time for Sita giving birth to the children. So he wanted his representative Shatrughna to be in that area. So Shatrughna, he goes after a month, and that is when he stops by Valmiki ashram, and the birth of Lava and Kusha happens. So the first born child was purified with the tips of the Kusha grass. So he came to be known as Kusha, and the younger brother with the lower part of the Kusha grass, which is called as a Lava. So he came to be known as Lava. So they are Lava Kusha. Both of them were born of Sita, and Shatrughna got the good news. And this was around the month of August, September, that is right now. This around this month, their birth is mentioned. So, as per Chavana's instruction, later next morning, Shatrughna he resumes his journey, and on the ninth day, Shatrughna encounters Lavanasur without the Trishul, and he was killed by the arrow that Shatrughna had gotten. And after killing the demon, he resided there and he ruled over the subjects, being a very responsible king. And then now Lavakusha, they were born and now they were ready to grow up. It was time for them to grow up, right? So they were growing up. This is the time when Valmiki goes back to the first verse. Our Ramayana starts actually at this point. So on the last day, the final concluding session, that is the beginning of Ramayana. This is when Valmiki was in great distress. Tapasvadhyaya niratam tapasvin vagvidamvaram naradam paripapracha Valmikir muni pungavam. He was in great distress. What was the distress Valmiki was in? He was thinking, all these years, I thought Ram is the supreme Lord. But look at him. He left his wife in the forest, and now she has given birth to two children, and he feels very sad. And he's thinking, who kon asmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan dharmagnyascha kritagnyascha satyavakyo dhridavrata. And he goes on thinking of all the qualities that the great Lord should have. And he's thinking, who is that who really has these qualities? And that is when Narada Muni comes into the scene. This is the first verse of the Valmiki Ramayana. Narada Muni comes and then he asks this question, who is that who is living now, who has all these 16 qualities? And Narada says, don't have any doubts in your mind. It is Ramachandra himself. And he gives the Sankshipta Ramayana. And then receiving the seed of the Sankshipta Ramayana, he goes to take bath in the river Tamasa. And that is when he sees two Krauncha birds. One Krauncha bird is fell down by a hunter and he spells a curse. Ma Nishata Pratishtatvam. he spells that curse, and later Brahma tells him, this indeed will be the very first verse of your composition. And then he starts writing. As he writes down the entire Ramayana, at this point, as Lavakusha are growing up, he begins to teach the entire Ramayana in the form of poetry. Okay, and it's been 12 years, Lava and Kusha, they have grown up learning the Ramayana. And Valmiki, after after this time, he has understood that the reason probably Ram had to leave Sita here is so that I have this doubt in my mind. And at that time, Narada Muni, who is the great spiritual master of the entire world, had to come and he had to inspire me. And I had to again be inspired by Brahma, and this great epic had to be evolved. So maybe that is the reason why the separation had happened. But now that this great epic has been evolved, and I have taught this epic in the form of music to the two sons of Ram, now it is time for the two boys to be united with their father. Okay, so he's thinking like that, and these boys, they are learning how to recite the Ramayana. 12 years had passed, and Shatrughna had decided to visit Ayodhya. So again, en route, he stops at Valmiki's ashram area, in that area, because area means like it's not like only one ashram is there. There are so many ashrams, and he's living in that region where the sages live. So he and his soldiers, they happened to hear the recitation with sweet music of Ram Katha, and they were very inquisitive. The soldiers tell Shatrughna, we'll go inside and find out who it is. But then Shatrughna says, no, no, you just cannot barge into the ashrams of great sages. They will not like it. It was very, very nice, but we should not interfere in their business. We should move on. So he goes back to Ayodhya. He stays in Ayodhya for 7 days, and then he returns to Mathura where he was ruling. Okay, so it's going on now. 12 years are passing. These boys are learning nicely. Meanwhile, back in Ayodhya, Ramachandra in his kingdom. One day, there was a Brahmin who comes out running from a village outside Ayodhya saying that his child had died. He was very angry with grief. He said, how come my child has died in your kingdom before the father, when the parents are living? Because it is not possible. If your Rajya is so perfect, then how come a child, before even becoming 14 years old, can die in the presence of his parents? That means there is a fault in your kingdom. That is when Ram, he inquires from the sages, and he finds, and that Narada Muni comes there to his rescue, and Narada Muni says that actually there is one man who's performing austerities inappropriately. He doesn't have the adhikar to do so, but he's trying to ascend heaven through a shortcut method. You should go and find that offender, and once he is killed, everything will be restored back to normalcy. That is when Ramchandra, he summons the Pushpak Viman through his mind, because he was given this boon that whenever he wants the Pushpaka, Pushpaka will come to his service. So he summons the Pushpak Viman through his mind, and Pushpak comes and he goes around the world trying to search the offender. When he goes in the southern region, in one particular hill, he finds a Shudra person who's hanging upside down performing austerities so that he can ascend to heaven inappropriately without going through sufficient purification. And he asks him, who are you? Who are you who's performing such heavy austerities? That is when he introduces himself as Shambhuka, and he says that though I am not qualified, still I want to do this. And before he had even finished the sentence, Ramchandra chopped off his head. Indra comes and he is very pleased with Ram's action, and he thanks Ram, and he tells him that it would have become a big trouble and a big disorder if this man was allowed to continue his austerities. So we are thanking you for helping us out. Then Ramchandra, as he's moving towards Koshala, he happened to see Sage Agastya, and that is when Sage Agastya he gifts him with a beautiful pendant. And Ramchandra says, "I am a Kshatriya. Kshatriya should give gifts to a Brahmin. How can I take a pendant from you? It's not appropriate." And that is when Agastya tells him about the story of a king by the name Shweta who had come in his dynasty. There was a king by the name Shweta. He went to the heavenly kingdom, but then, even in heavens, he could not enjoy good food. So every time he had to come back and subsist on his own body. He had to come down and subsist on his own body to satisfy his hunger. And that is when Agastya, seeing the scene, asks him, "Why are you in this condition?" And King Shweta explained that when he was ruling, he did not do sufficient charity of grains. And that is the reason why he was put into this condition. Though he performed so many varieties of austerities, he did not do charity. So that was a big deal. And that's why in heaven also he could not receive proper food and other things. And he had to subsist on his own body. And that is when he takes out his money that he was wearing, a beautiful pendant, and he presents it to Agastya as a gift in the form of a charity so that he could be relieved from that condition. When Agastya accepted that jewel, King Shweta got relieved from that condition. So Agastya says, "Since then I've been having this, but it is not appropriate for a sage to have all this. So I want to gift it to the king. Now that you are the king, it will be ideal if you have this." And then Ramchandra, he proceeds further. Ramchandra his desire to perform a sacrifice. He actually wants to perform the Rajasuya Yajna, but Bharat disapproves and he says, "You perform the Ashwamedha Yajna, it will be more appropriate for the welfare of the entire kingdom." And a black horse is chosen and it is let loose. And we saw the details of the Ashwamedha Yajna. And to commence the yajna, you need a patni, right? The yajaman needs a patni. You cannot just perform a yajna without wife. Only grihasthas perform yajnas. So that is when he creates a beautiful golden image of Sita Devi and invokes that deity with Mahalakshmi. He invokes Lakshmi to the deity and he has beautiful Sita Devi deity right next to him as his wife. Because the Apastamba Sutra states that when your wife is in a distant land or she is unwell or she's not able to be there in the yajna as according to any circumstance, that is when you create a form of your wife with the help of darba grass or with gold, pure gold, and you can ensure that you perform the yajna in her presence. So that is the procedure and the protocol given in the Vedas, and Ramchandra strictly follows that. And meanwhile, during the Ashwamedha Yajna that was being performed, Valmiki decides that his students, Lavakusha, should go and sing the chapters of the Ramayana. So they are taught to sing 20 chapters per day in 25 days, which is a total of 500 chapters. Ramayana can be chanted 20 chapters a day in 25 days, and you can complete Ramayana. But I don't know how many sessions we took. And of course, I averaged out 15 chapters a day. That is how I tried to present this. And he was told that the two boys were told, "You should go to every place, town, village, go to Ayodhya and go to the place of the Ashwamedha Yajna in Naimisharanya and continue to chant the Valmiki Ramayana. If Ramchandra or anyone asks you whose sons you are, just say that you are Muni Balakas. And if they ask you, if they give you gifts and gold coins, say that what is the use of gold coins for Muni Balakas who are subsisting on roots and fruits." So like this, they are trained and they proceeded based on the orders of their spiritual master. They began to sing like Gandharvas and they went to the places of the Ashwamedha Yajna as well as to the places of Ayodhya. And when Ramchandra asked them, Rama was very astonished when he saw this beautiful singing. And this section is also there in the first chapter of the Ramayana. We have gone through this, how Valmiki taught the two boys, and how the boys, they went about singing, and Ram himself was so absorbed that he would take the front seat, because it was not only his story, it was also the story of Sita Devi, right? So Sita Yas Charitam Mahat. So he would go and he would listen to this beautiful recitation, and he asked them, how many, who's your guru, who taught you this? And he says, the two boys say, Valmiki is our spiritual master, and this is the narration of your life. The poem consists of 6 parts: Balakanda, Ayodhya Kanda, Aranya Kanda, Kishkinda Kanda, Sundara Kanda, and Yuddha Kanda, and one additional part, which is your concluding pastimes, the Uttara Kanda. If you so desire, we will recite the entire Ramayana during the intervals of your sacrifice. So the audience who heard this beautiful narration, they were captivated. And finally, at one point, taking clues from the recitation, Ram could understand that this was none other than his sons. And he had a very strong desire to be united with Sita again. He thought Sita must come back. And he sent word to Valmiki Rishi that Sita should be brought back. And Valmiki made this proposal to Sita, saying that your husband wants you back, so let's go back. And that is when Sita had already made a decision in her mind. But however, she dressed up in in red garments, and she followed the sage with head bent low. She never raised her head even once. Ramchandra was so much waiting to see Sita again, and he caught a glimpse of Sita, but Sita would never raise her head up. Ram was very eagerly waiting when she will talk and when they can be united again. And while they were walking, while Valmiki Rishi and Sita Devi were entering that space, that arena, so many people were telling Sadhu Sadhu Rameti. Others were saying Sadhu Sadhu Siteti Chapare. Some were telling, oh, Sadhu Sadhu Rama. Others were telling Sadhu Sadhu Sita. And while the assembled citizens were looking on, see, actually, the intention that Ram and the citizens wanted is, if she can affirm again that she's pure or something like that, the citizens can accept her and she can come back and be with Ram. So that was the intention of asking her to come back. And Valmiki, he says, he announces to the people, the citizens, and Ram, saying, looking at Ram, he says, I have brought back your Sita, and although you loved Sita deeply and you were convinced of her innocence, she was unfortunately separated from you because of the opinions of unscrupulous persons. By dint of my spiritual vision, I can give you guarantee. I know Sita's purity is perfect, and I have come here to proclaim the truth in front of these citizens. Then Ram was gazing upon Sita, and then he also says the same thing to the assembly. He says, see, Valmiki Rishi has declared this to the assembly, and I accept it. Previously, the demigods had testified Sita's purity in Lanka, and I brought her back to Ayodhya. Still, people began to criticize us, and with great reluctance, I sent her away. But today, I have taken a decision. I don't want to be separated from her. She can just tell, she can make a claim about her innocence, and it'll be nice if I can accept her again. And he was waiting for Sita to speak. Everybody's eyes was fixed on Sita, but then Sita looked down and she made 3 vows. She said, O goddess earth, O Madhavi Devi, please hear my petition. If since the time of my marriage I have never thought of anyone but Ram, if I have never loved any man but my husband, then in my thought, word, or action, if I have not dwelt in anyone else other than Ram, O Madhavi Devi, please give me a place within you. I am not interested in experiencing the shame of facing the slanderous fault finding people. Saying that, the earth opened. Goddess Bhumi, she comes in a royal throne decorated with the divine serpents, and immediately she takes Sita in her arms and they get into the crevices of earth. Ram was very disappointed. He was shocked. He was dismayed, beating his staff again and again, striking again and again. He was screaming. He was ready to destroy this entire universe. He was so angry. He was calling out, saying that if she's your daughter, I'm your son in law, take me away with her. And he was so upset, and he was not able to control himself. And that is when Lord Brahma appears and tells him, don't you know your identity? You're the Supreme Lord, you are Vishnu himself, and this is only a temporary Leela, and you will soon be united with her in Vaikuntha. So he tells, give up all your grief and listen to the remaining part of the epic, the Valmiki Ramayana. Listen to the Uttara Kanda fully. So we should also listen to the Uttara Kanda fully. So then what happened? Ram, he passed the night grieving over the loss of Sita, and then he called Lavakusha to continue reciting the Uttarakand of the Ramayana. And yes, a very important aspect of this is Viraha Leela between Ram and Sita Devi. Ram continued to rule Ayodhya as an ideal king, but he found life quite barren. Without Sita, what is life, right? He performed many religious sacrifices, but in the place of his wife, he had the golden deity of Sita Devi. He ruled the kingdom according to strict religious principles. Now, coming to today's class, by the way, we have just come to today's class. Many years passed. Ram was very morose. It's not nice to be without Sita, right? So time passed by. Kausalya Devi became very old. She passed away. Then Sumitra and then Kaikeyi. They all became reunited with Maharaj Dasharath in a transcendental realm. Sometime later, Yudhajit, the king of Kekeya, he came to see Lord Ram at Ayodhya, and he requested him to conquer a Gandharva king by the name Sailusha with hundreds of sons who resided in the region of the river Sindhu. So Ram immediately appointed Bharat's two sons because they were all related to Desh, right? So he appoints Bharat's two sons, Taksha and Pushkala, as the ruler of that Gandharva kingdom. And Bharat accompanies them. They go with a large army and they win over the Gandharvas. And he established the city Takshashila, and Pushkalavati in this territory of Gandhara, which is near Kandahar today, near River Sindhu, Pakistan. Then 5 years later, Bharat he returns to Ayodhya, and Ram appointed Lakshman's two sons, Angada and Chandraketu, as the rulers of the places by the name Karupata and a territory known as Chandrakanta. After bringing that territory under subjugation, Lakshman also, just like Bharat, he also accompanies his two sons, stayed there for 1 year, and then he returns to Ayodhya. So, like this, some more years had passed. So, the sons of both Bharata and Lakshmana, they got different places to rule. And already Shatrughna, he was in Mathura by now, right? So, time passed by, and it was time for his earthly pastimes to be wound up. That is when suddenly one day time personified came to Ayodhya, like dressed as a wandering sage. He arrived at the gate of Ram's palace, and he announced to Lakshman, who was standing there, saying that I'm a messenger from Brahma, and I'm also a disciple of Atibala Rishi. I've come here for a very important mission. I want to see Ram immediately. And Ram, when he heard this news, he went running to the gate to receive the sage. He worships the sage. He gives a respectful seat to the sage. And Ram asks him, "Oh, sage, what is the reason of your visit? What message do you want to deliver to me?" And that is when the messenger says, if you really want to honor the words of Brahma, then our meeting should be in complete privacy. It should not go to the ears of others. And if anyone overhears our conversation, you should immediately sentence them to death. This is the condition, he says. So Ram immediately agrees to it, and he tells Lakshman, you ask the doorman to go. Instead, you go and personally guard the entrance. And this is a very strict order. Nobody should be in this vicinity. Guard the door. This meeting should be in 100% privacy. And while the two of them were alone, this Kala personified and Ramchandra was alone, Kala personified tells Ram, my dear Lord, you have appeared in this world as per our request. to relieve the burden of the earth. But now we all know Ravan has been killed, and you have ruled the earth for sufficient period of time, and you have kept law and order very nicely. So now it is time for you to return to your transcendental abode. And he says, you are the so uh, uh, he reads out the message from Brahma, where Brahma tells the Lord that, oh my Lord, you are the source of my birth. I took birth from a lotus that appeared from your navel. You are the supreme Lord. You are the same Lord who appeared as Vamanadev to relieve Indra from distress. And you're the same Lord who's appearing from time to time. You have now appeared to vanquish Ravana. You please accept my respectful obeisances. You have three choices. Whatever you want to do, you can do. If you want to continue ruling, you can do that, staying back on earth. Or if you want to go to the heavenly kingdom and give company to the demigods, you can do so. But if you think going back to your winding up your pastimes and going back to Vaikuntha is your preferred choice, please do so. That is when Ram smilingly replies to Kala personified, saying that you have spoken very nicely. Thank you for the message given by Brahma. Please tell Brahma that I have fulfilled the purpose of my existence here, and I don't want to go to the abode of the demigods, or I don't want to continue staying here, but I want to go back to the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. And while they were talking like this, it so happened that when Lakshman was standing at the entrance, suddenly Durvasa Muni came there. And he said, I want to see Ram immediately at once. And Lakshman says, no, that's not possible because he's having a very private meeting. But then Durvas loses his temper and he says that go and announce my arrival immediately. If you disobey me, I will curse Ram, I will curse Bharat, I will curse you, I will curse Shatrughna, I curse all your descendants, and I will wipe out the entire Ikshvaku dynasty. So then Lakshman, he was thinking, okay, what to do? And he thought it is better to face his own death than allow the entire Ikshvaku dynasty to be ruined. He thinks it is better for me to suffer. Let me be, because already Kala personified said, you have to, he told Ram, the person who disturbs our conversation has to be killed. Right? So Lakshman, knowing that it is better to give up his own life than make others suffer, he enters the room, and Ram was immediately informed of Durvasa's arrival, and immediately he runs, he folds his palms in front of Durvasa, and he asks Durvasa what he can do. And Durvasa says, I just completed 1,000-year fast. What can you give me to eat? What a perfect time to ask, give me something to eat. So Ram immediately went and he provided Durvasa a sumptuous feast. And the Rishi became very, very satisfied. And after Durvasa's departure, Ram remembered what Kala personified had told. So he felt so bad that he's going to be separated from his dear Lakshman. He didn't know what to do. Then he asks Vasishta, what should I do? How can I sentence Lakshman to death? Then Vasishta gives him an idea. He tells him, you don't have to sentence him to death. You can sentence him to be separated from you. Banish him from the kingdom. That is as good as asking him to die. Because for him, banishment from kingdom, not seeing you itself, is as good as death. So yeah, Lakshman, based on Vasishta's suggestion, Lakshman was asked to leave the kingdom. And finally, Lakshman also leaves. He went to the banks of the river Sarayu and he began to absorb his mind in mystic yoga, and he entered Mahaprashthanam. Mahaprashthanam means these great transcendental personalities, they just go back to their abode pretty much. And Lakshman departed from the earthly pastimes. It is mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana that he temporarily halted in the heavenly kingdom because he was waiting for Ram to come. Then he joins Ramchandra in going back to Godhead. So then later what happens is after Lakshman's disappearance, Ram decided to install Bharat on the royal throne so that he can retire to forest. But then we all know Bharat is not going to agree. So he refused that. And instead, Ramchandra had to enthrone his sons, Lava and Kusha. He gave Kusha the northern part of Koshala and Lava the southern part of Koshala. And after the coronation ceremony, Ram embraced his twins and gave them vast amount of gold, jewelry, all that, horses, elephants, and he taught them how to rule very nicely. Then Shatrughna was also bent upon, he could understand that his brother was actually trying to wind up his pastimes. So Shatrughna was also bent upon following Ram as much as Bharat was bent upon following Ram. So Shatrughna coronates his son Subhahu as the king of Mathura and Shatrugati, the second son, as the king of Vishada, Vidisha or Bishala near Bhopal. And then the Lord finally, all the brothers understood the Lord is going to wind up his pastimes. So it was a time when they had all decided to make the final procession. So it was time for the final procession for everyone to walk out. And it is mentioned that during the final procession, not a single animal was even seen in Ayodhya. Uh, the news that the Lord is going to do his Mahaprashthan, he is going to wind up his pastimes, had reached many, many places. Even the Vanaras, they also got to know that the Lord is in his final procession. The Vanaras, the bears, and even some of the Rakshasa followers of Vibhishan, and all of them had gotten this news. Even many sages from in Dandakaranya and so many other places, so many Brahmanas, great exalted personalities, followers of Lord Ram, the news had spread everywhere that Ram is going to actually wind up his pastimes. So, hearing this news, Sugriv, the Vanara king, he coronates his nephew Angada as the king of the Vanaras, and he decided to accompany the Lord in his final journey. However, when Vibhishan wanted to come along with the Lord, Vibhishan was asked to stay back, and he was asked to continue staying in Lanka and also worship the Kuladev of the Ikshvaku dynasty, who's Lord Ranganath. So even to this day, the traditional belief is that during night, Vibhishan comes and worships Lord Ranganath. So he specifically tells Vibhishan, you should stay back, you can't come with me. Then he looks at Hanuman and he tells Hanuman, it's your desire to stay back wherever there is Ram Katha being spoken, so you please stay back. And he tells Jambavan, Mainda, Dvivida to also stay till the end of Kali Yuga. We know that later Dvivida was killed by Balaram. So Jambavan was also given this uh, boon to continue to stay. So five people continue to stay back on earth. Who are the five people? Mainda, Dvivida, Jambavan, Hanuman, Vibhishan. Except these five, the rest of the Vanaras, the bears, and the favorable Rakshasas, sages, all of them, they came to Ayodhya very, very soon, very quickly. The news spread, people started coming. Now, after all of them had come, the next day morning, Ram, he asked the chief priest of the Ikshvaku dynasty to hold the fire from his Agnihotra ceremonies. Now, a Grihastha performs Agnihotra ceremonies, and the same fire that is lit, we say generally during the time of marriage, is later taken to burn our bodies. That is the tradition. So he tells, hold the Agnihotra. That means it's my final journey. So hold the Agnihotra fire in front, and then the umbrella from the Vajpaya Yajna, and all these paraphernalia was taken. All the sages also began joining Ram. They were standing in the front in the procession. Ramchandra was wearing very fine garments. He was chanting mantra on his lips continuously. He was holding kusha grass as he was moving forward. So, as Lord Ram was walking, everybody could see that he was exhibiting a mood of complete detachment and indifference, as if he's preparing to give up this world. All of Ram's potencies in their personified forms, they started to accompany him on this occasion. Shri, opulence, walked on Ram's right. Bhumi, she walked on Lord's left. Shakti walked in front. His weapons personified walked along, and innumerable other energies followed Ram, including Omkara, Gayatri, Vedas, and all his paraphernalia. They all took personal forms and they started working with Ram. Next in the procession came Bharata, Shatrughna, and all their families. And there were so many other Brahmanas who were accompanying them. Behind these Brahmanas walked the rest of the citizens according to their positions. And behind these citizens were different kinds of animals and even plants, grass, immovable objects. Everything started moving along with Lord Ram. Finally, Ram reaches the banks of the river Sarayu. Ram paused at that time. At that time, Lord Brahma, along with all the demigods, appeared with their celestial chariots in the sky. The sky was lit up with a heavenly radiance, and there was sweet, gentle breeze that was blowing everywhere. The Gandharvas and the Apsaras, they began to dance, and the rest of the residents of heaven, they were raining down fragrant flowers. After some time, Ram started entering into the water with his lotus feet inside the water, and Brahma began offering these prayers. Brahma said, O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are now concluding your earthly pastimes. You are preparing to go back to your transcendental abode, which is beyond this material world. You are indeed the eternal Vishnu. And although you appear in various incarnations, your body is always transcendental. You are the unchanging and original Lord. It is you alone who's the cause of all causes, the support of every existence. Everything is a part and parcel of you, O Supreme Absolute Truth. O Lord, you have kindly appeared to remove the burden of earth. So let us now offer our respectful obeisances unto you again and again. Then the portions of the demigods who came there to assist Lord Ram returned to their original position, and then followed by Bharat and Shatrughna, Lord Ram entered into Sarayu and returned to his eternal abode into the spiritual sky. And Lakshman, who was waiting for him, also got reinstated in his original position. In fact, not only the sons of Dasharath, but all of their followers, whoever took bath in the river Sarayu, they all attained Vaikunta, or specifically Saket Dham, or the spiritual Ayodhya, and they got reinstated in the spiritual world. In fact, Brahma himself personally guided each one of them in the path towards Vaikunta. So it is mentioned that when we all go to Vaikunta or Goloka Vrindavan, we are accompanied by Vishnu Dutas, right? So like that, Brahma, he was the person who showed the path. He was showing everyone you should go to Vaikunta like that. And Brahma also declared that all the Vanara Amshas will go back to their original positions in the heavenly planets. And Ayodhya was desolate after this because every creature went back to Godhead, right? So everybody, it was empty, practically wiped out empty. And it was declared that again this land would be inhabited again during the reign of King Rishabha. So, with this, we conclude this transcendental narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra that was composed by the great Rishi and devotee Valmiki. There is a Palashruti, which I will read. Ramayana bestows longevity, fortune, and pleasure. The hearing of even a single verse has the potency to eradicate all sins, and it is equal to the Vedas. One must recite the Ramayana during the time of funeral rites. A sonless person obtains a son. A poor person obtains wealth. One is absolved of all sins that is committed by a person that day, even if he reads one verse from the scripture. A man gets the retribution of performing 1,000 Ashwamedha and 10,000 Vajpaya Yajnas just by listening to one canto of the Ramayana. Actually, we heard one full canto today. One must listen to the Ramayana in the morning and afternoon and evening. He's supposed to have, if he does so, he's supposed to have visited all the holy places and taken bath in all the holy rivers if he has heard the Ramayana like this. He who listens to the Ramayana with faith goes back to the spiritual world. Even his father, grandfather, and great grandfathers, mothers, including all generations, attain the Lord's abode. For this reason, those who seek liberation from the repeated cycle of birth and death always cherish this great transcendental literature. The recitation of Ramayana grants one of all fruits of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and even beyond that. It helps one to advance forward to the life's ultimate goal, the development of pure love of God. May all the listeners of this epic become blessed and inspired in Krishna consciousness. May the transcendental forms of Sita, Ram, and Lakshman always stay in our hearts. So, all glories to all the devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to all our acharyas, all glories to all the commentators, and thank you, dear listeners. Hare Krishna. With this, we will end. Hari Bol. Any discussions?
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for redoing this entire stanza for us. Thank you so much. It was
Thank
excellent. Though
you
we
for
were
your
hearing it for
presence.
the second time, but still it was so blissful. Very nice. Thank you, Mataji.
Mataji, it's such a difficult time for you. And thank you for your presence. You made it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for sharing it again. The whole summary of Uttarakhanda and again the last day's portion also. Mataji, as I heard again, I had a question. Why was it that Brahma came with three options for the Lord? He is the Supreme Lord. He has free will. He's able to go wherever. Why is it that Brahma said, okay, these are your three choices for now, decide where you want to go?
He didn't say that. These are your choices. Decide where you want to go. If you want to go here, you can go here. If you want to go there, you can go there. It's asking, telling like that. Not saying you have choices, you listen to me. It's not like that. Yeah. So see, and these are the possibilities. You can choose whatever possibility you want. Like that. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Very beautiful again. Thank you so much. And thank you for recording it this time. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay, I
Mataji.
think the Hari Bol Prabhu, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So finally we did this again so that we could have recording, and I hope it was worthwhile. And I think we took the exact same time again. 7:55 we stopped. Yeah. Okay. So we'll end here. With this, the series gets completed. And we can save the entire playlist and I can share it in the group for future reference. And with that, we will end. Okay. Vanchakalpatarubhyaश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
जय,
Shri Valmiki
all
Ramayana
glories
ki
to all the
jai. Her
saints.
Grace Preethi Vilasini Mataji ki jai. Thank you so
Jai
much.
Shri
Mataji.
Prabhupada.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
All
Mataji.
Mataji.
glories.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mataji.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.